Welcome to a new episode of Pedalboard Tips. Today, much like my comparison on delay types, I'm going to compare 4 of the most popular reverb types on reverb stompboxes or in studios. These types are room, hall, spring, and plate reverbs. So I'm going to compare them using 2 pedals, the Strymon Big Sky and the TC Electronic Hall of Fame. The Big Sky has all the types stock, so it is very short reverbs, and the Hall of Fame has everything set up at noon, so it's a bit more prominent and more decay on the reverbs. I will try to explain things very simply because there are a lot of parameters to consider on reverbs, but the ones that we are going to focus on are the initial reflection. So this is the first milliseconds when the sound hits a wall or whatever is in the room to get the first reflections, and then we call this the body, which is the peak of the reflections in the room that you're on. So this is where the reverb is the most prominent. And then you have the decay, which is the time that it takes to die off. So for the first type of sound, the room, it's emulating a small space. So it has strong initial reflections on the wall, but a minimal body of sound. So it dies very fast. It's ranging from 0.1 to 1 seconds. So it sounds like this. So the room reverb is a very good always on reverb because of the strong initial attacks. It kind of beefs up your initial attack on your guitar. Without it, it takes a lot more space, but because of the minimal body, it never overloads your signal while you are playing. There's not something that takes too much space underneath your sound. So it's a very good always on reverb as a complement to your sound. Then the hall reverb is kind of the opposite. It's to emulate a concert hall, so it's a lot longer, from 1 to 3 seconds of reflections, and instead of having a strong initial reflection, it's even more, it's a cluster of initial reflections, and the body is very full after it. So it's not really the kind of reverb that you are going to put always on, and it's not very effective when you want to pick and have some funky stuff. So I will make an example so you can hear that. So you see, because of the very full body, it was taking a little bit too much space underneath my sound. So the hall reverb is a lot more effective when you play slower and when you want the reverb to kind of fill the space underneath your guitar sound, like this. It's much better to use it like this. The next type is the spring reverb, and unlike the other two types. It is a man-made reverb. It's not emulating a natural sound. So it is made with springs, obviously, and it's often found in guitar amps. So I think it's comparable to the room sound, as you want to use this as a base to your sound or a always on reverb. But the difference is that it emphasizes a lot more the higher frequencies, and the sound is less linear. You have more resonances that are filtered through the reverb. So let's hear how it sounds. So you hear that the difference is really how the resonances are filtered through. So this is the room, and this is the spring. So with the spring, you kind of hear the spring bouncing at the end. Instead of the room, it's more... It's hard to explain with your voice, but you see the point. And the last one, the plate, is also man-made, so it is vibrating with a metal sheet or a metal plate. It's not a spring, it's a sheet that is vibrating. It is much more comparable to the hall setting, but the difference is that it has minimal reflections. You remember that the hall has a cluster of initial reflections and a full body, but the plate has minimal reflections but a full body too. So it's very good when you want the reverb to not take too much space on your initial attack, but still fill up the sound on the decay after it. So it is a very good ambient reverb that is not too prominent like the hall reverb. So now I'm going to play them one after another so you can hear the differences between them. Of course, you could use those reverb types for other purposes that they were intended for. So you could have a spring reverb with a 20-second decay if you want, because with pedals now we have a lot more control on all the parameters. That's it for this comparison. I know it can get complicated sometimes. I know that the differences are still subtle, but I hope you have learned one thing or two regarding reverb types. If you are not subscribed to my channel, please subscribe with the bubble here, and you can watch the other video on the delay types that I have done some months ago on my channel. Turn on the little notification bell thing to be notified about my next uploads, and until next time, au revoir!